So yeah, we are just in time. So I think we're going to start. So thanks again for joining the Wiser. So we are going to start a panel discussion about gender equity at KAUST. I hope this discussion will be interesting not only for KAUST people, but in more general manner. And first, before we start this panel discussion, I want to ask you, do you know the difference between equity and equality? Okay, who knows? If you know the difference, you raise your hand. You will not have to talk if you want to talk. It's okay. It's safe to raise your hand. Okay. Okay. So that's good. For those who don't know, I just want to give a short example. So equality, let's say that you have two persons, Stefan and I, who want to make a match, to play a game, and we need to find a group of people in our team. And if we want to have equality, let's say if we want to pick up the people in our team in this room, we can say, okay, we split this room in two, exactly in the middle, and then we have equal chance, each of us, to have the good number of people in each part of the room. This is equality. But it's unfair because basically on this side of the room, there is less people than on this side of the room. To have equity, we should make something in the room to have the same number of people on both sides, and then give a chance to each of us to pick up the team member with the same number of people. So it's okay, I'm not sure I'm super clear. My point is that equity is trying to, giving the same chance to everyone, even if the environment is not equally distributed for all of us. Okay, does this clarify? Okay, very good. Let's start. So just a few numbers. So we are talking about gender equity at KAUST. We heard the president of the university saying that in terms of a female student, we are around, let's say, 35% of female students, which is a quite good number for the technology and science university. But then when we move on the level, or I don't know if a level is the correct term, so different classes of people in the university, if we look at the faculty, currently we are 13% of female faculty. And if we look at the senior leadership, less than 5% of senior leadership are female. So it's a kind of a pyramidal structure. This is not uncommon at all. This is general in universities. You can have different numbers, but usually you have this distribution. So I will start by introducing our panelists here, who will be addressing this question about gender equity at KAUST. I will start with Naadiya. So Naadiya Carrim, thanks for joining us. You recently changed your position. Now you are the director of Marcom, or can you, I don't know the new name of...
Yeah, so it's KAUST Global Branding and Communications. But first and foremost, I am a woman in STEM. I've got my PhD as well. So I was also in the research office just previous to this role. So this panel discussion is very relevant to myself. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I think so this is a microphone for you guys. So I will continue with Dean Ravi. So Dean Ravi is Dean of the PSC division. Who I really appreciate your support, and I asked you maybe 6 months ago to be part of this webinar. You say yes, sure, and I was super happy with this positive feedback.
Very happy to be here, Diana, and happy to see all the faces here. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And our last panelist, but not least, is Stefan. So we were supposed to have someone from HR, but unfortunately, for medical reason, he couldn't join at the last minute. And Stefan accepted to join us. So Stefan is the Associate Dean of the BC Division. Thanks a lot for accepting at the last minute to be part of this discussion.
Yes, a pleasure to be here. I'm not sure how much I know about HR, but
yeah,
I hope I can contribute in one way or another.
Okay, so before we dig into the problem of KAUST. All of you who have been working in different institutions before joining KAUST, and in your feeling, your intuition or your impression, how KAUST compare in terms of gender equity compared to your previous institution? Maybe we can start by Nadia.
Yeah, so I've actually worked in a couple of countries and various different institutions. So I've come from Ireland, Australia, and Canada, and here to KAUST. And KAUST compares very well to my other institutions that I've been in. And actually, if you think about it, KAUST is in Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia was not like these other countries. Women were already driving; they already had the right to vote. So if KAUST, and I think KAUST is actually statistically quite similar to other institutions around the world, you have to look at how amazing that is, because the countries that they were both in are very, very vastly different. So I would say it compares very well.
Thank you.
So I did my homework on this, Diana. So if you don't mind, I'll pull out some.
Thank
some
you,
statistics.
Ravi.
About a decade at Princeton, and at Princeton, the number of undergraduates is 50-50, male to female. Now remember, Princeton is about maybe 5 times the size of KAUST in terms of students, but it's not purely a STEM school. It has the arts, it's liberal sciences, liberal arts, and so on. Masters is about 49 male, 51% female, so that's actually higher. But the ratio gets more skewed then in favor of males. Doctoral students 60%, female 40%, postdoc 65%, female 35%. And then you go to professors, assistant and associate roughly 60% male, 40% female, full professors 72% male and 28% female. And so compared to KAUST, Princeton is actually doing, I think, significantly better. Before coming to, sorry, I'm not done yet.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Before Princeton, I spent a few years at Caltech, and at Caltech is more of a STEM school, purely STEM school, right? So it's 45% undergraduate is 40% female and 60% male, and it's 45-55 at the graduate level. And faculty-wise, they're actually doing better than us, much better. 41% female and 59% male. So the female to male ratio at Caltech is much better than KAUST. And so if you compare us to these institutions, we have a long ways to go, especially in representation of the faculty. In students, like we said, 35% female students at KAUST is still a decent and healthy number, which can be improved. But unfortunately, the PhD division is a little bit lower than that. You know, it's to be expected. We get more female representation in computer science and in the life sciences. So in that sense, we have our work cut out for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just got the question now. So prior to KAUST, I started studying in Germany and then went to France, the UK, spent some time in Japan and in the US before coming to KAUST. I was in the US. So just as like a gut feeling, I think I wasn't when I first got into the scientific area I'm in, I didn't really was so much aware of the imbalance in male-female positions at the time. And I think that's because so I started in France and in the UK. Not sure about statistics, but certainly the value of, I mean, I think the women in science were very well respected women in science at the time, and it wasn't as much as an issue, maybe because there wasn't as much of a problem. I think still it was skewed. So we had very prominent full professors in France, just as well as in the UK. In particular, I was in the Institute of Dame Louise Johnson, a very, very prominent scientist. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2012. But yeah, so also in my science, which is molecular biophysics, so it's a very hardcore physics, women were still are, of course, but in the past, very well respected. We have Nobel Prize winning contributions from women all along the centuries. Certainly not as many as we would have hoped, but still the idea of women in science was very prevalent. Of the contributions was very important. I think in the US, I'm not quite sure about the exact ratio, but it was more like a something which is on everybody's mind. We have to look at the numbers, we have to look at the position distribution. So that was certainly taking care of it. Japan was a disaster in terms of that distribution. In the units I was, women in science, well, women were in science, but the highest they could sort of get seemed to be technicians. And that role often was occupied by making coffee and tea and photocopies. So that was really bad. Coming to Saudi, I was expecting maybe something not as good, but actually I was surprised when I went to mostly sort of Saudi local conferences with clinicians. There was a felt equal distribution, or not just of women in the audience, but also of women speaking, sort of having been selected as speakers. And that was maybe, yeah, already like 5 years ago.
Okay, thank you. So it's you're talking about 5 years ago. So we all, for the people who are in Saudi Arabia for at least 5 years, we saw the evolution of the country. So it's obvious. And we also saw some evolution at KAUST. 5 years or 6 years ago, maybe the number of female faculty at KAUST was closer to 5% than to 13%. So it was a real improvement. A lot of women have been higher recently. And maybe this is a question for Dean Ravi. So what was put in place for that? It was probably a decision or an action to reach this 13%. What has been done?
Yeah, Diana, thank you for the question. So again, let me start off with some numbers. It sounds very nice when I tell you that in the last few years, we increased the number of female faculty in the PhD division by 50%, but that's going from 4 to 6. And then we added another visiting faculty. This is Hildegard Westphal in the earth sciences. So even though in percentages, it seems like a big jump, in absolute numbers, it is still about, in our division, unfortunately, compared to the others, we're not doing as well. We are still about 7, we went from 7 to 8%. That's not a big jump in percentage in terms of the percentage of total faculty in the division. So the campaign probably started before I became dean. I've been dean for about 3.5 years. And so I don't know if anything consciously was done to increase the number of female faculty. All I can tell you is that since I've been dean of the PhD division, we paid special attention to female faculty candidates. But that didn't mean that we put any special measures in place. We still were, we did not give any, there was no quote unquote affirmative action. So this is the phrase from the United States. So there was no affirmative action in that sense. And we left it to the degree programs to identify the candidates and so on. So nothing really special was done except the recognition that we need to increase the female numbers in the women numbers in the division. And I think more can be done. And maybe later on I'll tell you what ideas we have now, and I'll come back to it later.
Okay,
Is
thank
that
you.
okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. So a general question now about the current situation at KAUST, not only for female faculty, but in general for women at KAUST. Do you think that women, they have the same chances, the same opportunities for their career at KAUST at the moment compared to their male colleagues?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Since I'm holding the microphone, I'm gonna
go ahead.
I'm gonna hog the microphone. I'm gonna eat it. Okay. Yeah. So, oh, no wonder you were telling me to hold it closer. Wow. It's like it's like a voice in the sky. I can't hold it that close. I'm gonna hold it a little bit lower. Hopefully, everybody can still hear me, right? Okay. Fantastic. So. This goes back to the question of equality versus equity. Yes, we do provide the same resources to women faculty as male faculty. Same baseline, same access to CRG funds and any other grant mechanism, same access to students. But this does not address the equity imbalance. Okay, so one thing that we have in mind is to maybe give better baseline to female faculty, increase their chances of success in some way to be better successful at writing CRG grants. And this can be achieved through better mentorship, more training in terms of writing award-winning proposals, and also giving them better access to students. I remember before I became dean and I was associate dean, we used to have this kind of informal quotas because we wanted to have diversity of students on campus. So, for example, back in the day, it was like if the Chinese student population hit 20%, then you kind of put the brakes on that. And at the time, what I did as associate dean was I would give preference in terms of student recruitment to junior faculty. So if you're an assistant professor, or female faculty as opposed to more established faculty. So students, when we were coming close to the quota limits, we would give better access to female and junior faculty. So this was a way to increase their chances of getting more resources and more students and being more successful. But again, we have not formalized these things. Certainly faculty mentorship is something that the provost has formalized now. So there is mentorship programs for junior, assistant, and associate faculty. And this is something that will hopefully address some of the issues when it comes to, are the chances good? Was there a follow-on question to this, Diana, or it was about the chances?
Yes, it was the chances in terms of, again, access to students, but also to funding or to also opportunities. So for example, at the university, it's normal to have industrial funding, for example.
Yeah.
Here, the context is a bit different because industrial funding from Saudi Arabia, they are strongly male dominated.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. So, when it comes to industry in Kingdom, or SME, small, middle enterprises, and the two big giant corporations is Aramco and SABIC. Unfortunately, there are cultural differences, and this kind of prevents female faculty from being more engaged with industry projects or getting more industry funding directly. I know, Diana, you were very successful in CCRC in managing and getting funds from Boeing. So this was kind of an outlier, I would say. Okay, so we need to do a better job of engaging our female faculty, somehow helping them to engage better with industry and other small and medium enterprises in Kingdom.
Thank you.
Let me give the female perspective. Maybe I can just start by saying that, in the research office, I was one female in a room of 10 center directors, my vice president for research, and my director. Now in the SLM meetings, I am one of 2 females surrounded by 13 males. This is at KAUST. So this is quite striking to me. And with this question of what are the chances that are given to us at KAUST, let's split it in 2. What are the chances that are given to us by the organization, by KAUST itself, by HR? And what are the chances given to us by personal interactions that we have with males on a day-to-day basis? For me, I have been so lucky. My organization has believed in me. I do think that I am still just a number. I am a female that they are trying to empower, but they are doing very well with that. They've given me this interim role as director for global branding and communications, and I've worked hard for it as well. So they've seen that. So the organization has given me the equal opportunities that they've given to my male counterparts, and it's about what I've done with that. Now let's look at the day-to-day interactions that I would have with males in my job. I think personally, it depends, on the person itself and themselves. I don't think that we're given equal opportunities from, just males in KAUST. Organization, yes, 100%. Do I think that some of the males in innovation or research or GBC would like to be speaking to a male because they might relate to them better? Absolutely, I believe that. So yeah, I think equal opportunities are given by the organization, but there's a lot to be said for the males in KAUST as well and the opportunities that they give to their female counterparts.
Thank you.
All right, so from the bioscience division point of view, well, don't think we need any particular mentoring or help for our female faculty to bring them up to our level, if that was any sort of message which got out. We recruit faculty because of the excellence, and our female faculty are outstanding. If anything, the male needs some more help now. But there may, of course, still be these which are beyond KAUST, and certainly was mentioned getting from industrial partners. In our division, this is not such a big issue at the moment. We typically get funded intramurally through CRGs and others. And of course, the CRGs also get sent out. And then the name of the PI would be on the proposal, and that can also have, can sort of be negatively perceived by the reviewer, intentionally or unintentionally. So that is something we cannot really control. But what, I mean, maybe it's more like a question. So if you get applicants and we have a good female applicant, of course you would perfectly go for the person. But I think we still have more male applicants to KAUST. So one of the points would maybe to see how can we increase the number of very good females who are out there to apply to KAUST. And we do need to acknowledge that even with all the changes we have perceived, maybe Saudi Arabia has still a bit of is still perceived with a certain bias by female scientists. I mean, that's something we can work on and make more sort of outreach. And of course, one of the possibilities is to make sure that we have conferences or any other possibilities for inviting speakers, that we bring as many females as we think we can have, well, as many female faculty, potential faculty candidates as possible, so that they can see the facts on the ground, which are often sufficiently nice to convince people to come over. Because I had tried to invite at least 1 or 2 female speakers from outside, and they said, sorry, I'm not going to speak in Saudi Arabia. I tried to make the opposite point, because by coming here, they kind of be a role model. It's fantastic. I didn't manage to convince them. But I think that's work in progress, and certainly has become easier over the years. So I think we should try to make sure that we get more female on campus as invited speakers. That's typically easier to be accepted and makes them change their minds. Maybe also if you have particular packages for female related to maternity leave or childcare, which we do have, I think, at least childcare is probably certainly quite well done. So if you can think about these sort of circumstances, which may also influence positively a decision of promising female scientists to apply to KAUST.
Yeah, thank you. So we will go back to this question of what we can do to improve the situation. But before that, I have kind of a bit difficult question, maybe. We have a female working in a male-dominated environment, and you can have issues with that. So we can have a misogynistic behavior up to the way to sexual harassment. And I am certain that in your experience, you have faced that at KAUST. Do you think that the KAUST is successful in managing these issues?
So maybe just let's bring it back to what Stefan said. Stefan, you said that maybe we can incentivize women, you know, with the fact that there's child health, there's childcare, and you know, these kind of added bonuses in KAUST. Well, why is there so much pressure on women about the family? You know, why should that be an incentive to bring women to KAUST, to Saudi Arabia? But you're right. There is this mindset that we need to get over. So again, let's look at this question about misogynistic behavior at KAUST in 2 different parts, one from the organization and one on a personal, you know, base by base encounters. So the organization works well with dealing with sexual harassment, in my opinion, and misogynistic behavior. On a base by base encounter, I'm not so sure. I have been told when I was once speaking with a professor, and I understood his research, and he realized I understood it, and we started talking about it. He said, "Oh, clever girl." And I did wonder if he would say that to a male. I once asked a stakeholder if they appreciated my work and what did they think of my work. And they said, "Well, you always come in with a smile." And I wondered if they would have said that to me if I was a male. So maybe some workshops could be given to the males at KAUST. especially the older gentlemen, and how to speak. Ravi, you're okay. You're all right. On how to speak with women, you know, because imagine I turned around and said, "Good boy, well done." What would they think? You know?
Thanks, Nadia. So yes, the organization under HR, we have policies, we have rules about bad behavior, misogynistic behavior, sexual harassment. But I tell you that there is one difference, right? I don't know if it happens today, but when I joined back in 2010, there was no training. I know when I joined Caltech or Princeton, in the first few days, I had to undergo training. And this was mandatory training for all faculty and staff. And you had to go through this training, and then you had to kind of renew this training every so often, right? Every year, every 2 years, periodically renewal of the training. Because even the norms and the social mores and the behavioral expectations of males in front of other genders it changes with time, right? So you have to keep sort of up to date with that. So we don't have formally such training, and I think this is it's about time HR got their act together on this and decided that we need to have some training, including instances where somebody says "good girl" or things like that. This is just not acceptable in the 21st century. I mean, people need to clearly understand that, and I think a lot of the people here are smart enough to realize that this is unacceptable behavior. You train them, they will adapt. So I think we need to have that kind of training. Now, specifically, there are rare instances where something like that comes to my attention. Yes, misogynistic behavior has come to my attention, actually with respect to a female faculty, and we addressed that. And it was, typically it was because of cultural differences, and it was because of miscommunication between the two parties. So that was kind of resolved amicably. There was also one specific case of sexual harassment, and this had nothing to do with the male from KAUST. It had actually to do with a contractor worker. And when it came to my attention, I immediately escalated up to the president, straight went to the top. And the guy was pretty much fired within 24 hours. It's kind of escorted off and be done with it. So at the highest levels, I can assure our female colleagues here that there is the will, and there is the power to sort of make things right, and make things right very quickly if these instances occur. But I think proper training of female from male staff and faculty is very important, and this should happen. And let me stop here. Fun.
Thank you.
Yes, I think certainly would agree that we have a zero tolerance towards bullying or harassment of all the cases we hear about. So maybe it's a very important point, because maybe people accept of various cultures or female versus, well, maybe some think it's more normal to be spoken to in a certain way. So we would never hear about those cases. If you hear about the cases, we can follow up. But if you don't, we cannot do anything. So maybe it's also following up on that, what you said, that it's good to have an awareness campaign saying, if someone speaks to you like that, that is not tolerable. And you have to come and speak to the deans, associate deans, whoever is your mentor, and you feel safe to talk with the person. So that's important, that people who are subject to these intolerable behaviors know that they cannot be tolerated and have to speak up, which requires some certain courage, I admit, but hopefully that is also something that could be addressed in how these people can be taken, how these people can speak safely of whatever happened, either directly, or if they observe something, then they can also address it. So it's important that everybody knows what is the limit, and then we can help enforcing that. But if it's tolerated from the person who gets this treatment, then it's difficult for us to follow up. And just picking up with the point with the daycare and everything, yes and no. I think it's also an important part for male. But if you showcase that, well, I spend probably as much time with the kids as my wife, maybe even more, because she works more than I do, I think. the point is that maybe it would help to improve the image of Saudi Arabia and open the minds of female plausible candidates or interested candidates who are coming here if they see, wow, in addition, they have this very good healthcare system, which in my country, for example, the US, is not always a given. And when I was in the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, in Texas, I think there was no maternity leave. The women would advise, yeah, you know what, if you give birth, you can either take it as a unpaid leave or as a holiday or a sick leave, but it's neither holiday nor sick leave. So I think we can gain points and be more visible on that aspect.
Okay, thank you. So before we move to the next part about what can be done in terms of improving the situation, do we have any questions from the audience for the topic we already started to cover? Don't be shy. Yeah.
Let's throw something in, maybe, but adding on that, having a stated paternity leave would be just as well.
I hope this will this, okay, we are all on that, so please keep it for just a few minutes.
Thank you so much for this very interesting discussion. We have an amazing diversity here, not just in gender and nationalities and so on, but I feel like we need to work even more in inclusion. We don't have to my knowledge, we don't have a center of culture or, right? Do we? Our center of culture or inclusion, what happens when we have diversity without real inclusion? Conflict happens, segregations, other things. I'd love to hear about your thoughts and how we look, do we have equal opportunities, for example, for an Asian or African lady compared to a white man, even at the student level, faculty level, and leadership?
My experience in KAUST, absolutely we do. Like whatever color you are, whatever gender you are, the organization provides you with the same opportunities. It's about what you do with that opportunity then. Not so sure about this Center for Culture, but we do have the Enrichment Office as well, which I think also brings us quite closely together. And HR provide a lot of workshops on working across cultures as well. So from my own personal experience, I can say I'm mixed race female, and I have always felt very included in KAUST as a whole. I think we have equal opportunities here.
Yes, I would say that at the highest levels, the university does have chances for everybody to get to succeed and to get promoted. But it doesn't mean that that's the reality, in the sense that it doesn't mean that you will always see a huge diversity, let's say at the highest levels, or you will see a huge diversity in the number of full professors. So there's still work to be done, I would have to say, okay, to make this happen more. So that I don't know what else to say, because there are cultural differences. We can go through the training, we can try to be very inclusive, and opportunities are given to everybody. But at the same time, we also have to recognize that somebody from Africa may be more inhibited in taking on those roles than somebody from Europe. Cultural differences, the fact that I've been given the opportunity, but what if am I going to succeed in this all white male environment? It's not necessarily all white males, seriously, at the top, but still, if it's perceived that way, people might feel like I'm not going to succeed when I reach there, because the odds will be stacked against me. So we need to also give the message all from top down, all the way to the bottom level students, whoever, that yes, if you have the skill set, you have the intelligence, you have the hard work, perseverance, all the qualities that matter in making you succeed, then yes, you will succeed, right? Don't overthink it, right? Just go grab the opportunity and work towards it. If you then feel like, or if you are facing obstacles, go talk to your mentor, go talk to your colleagues, and resolve the issue as best as you can. That's my advice.
I'd like to ask you, Professor Ravi, about the recent, I think it's called Discovery Fellowship.
Yes.
I know that they KAUST launched it because they want to increase the maybe student population from Europe and the US, right? North America, Canada and the US. But the thing I felt like this was making privileged people even more privileged, because even the benefits within this package more than the other like KAUST students. So I felt like it wasn't, it did not send the right message. At least like KAUST should empower those who are like underprivileged rather than bring
Good.
already these privileged people with even more like.
It's a very good point, and it's very good to get this feedback. So when we were presented with the problem we were trying to solve is this. Then at least I remember that the percentage of students coming from North America is 2%. One shouldn't even talk about these small percentages because they vary from 1 to 3. Because if you have one more person come in, you go up by 1 percentage point. So it's the percentage of students coming from North America was very limited. And the percentage of students coming from Europe is about 13% or so. Maybe Stefan knows this better because associate deans deal with the student admission numbers, but every day. So about 13% is 13 to 15% from Europe, right? And the problem presented to us was, this is a very small cohort of students coming from North America and Europe. How do we solve the problem? Okay, so it was not posed as, and it was not solved, and it was not, the solution maybe not the best solution. So we don't want to give more privilege to the already privileged. The problem was, how do we increase the diversity at KAUST of the student population? And this was one mechanism to deal with it. But you're completely right. If the feedback from the students, I don't know if you're a student or staff.
Yeah, I'm a student.
Yeah, so this feedback from the students is like, hey, wait a minute, this is not the best use of your resources, and it only makes me feel worse because now I feel the privilege is getting even more privilege. You should feed that back to all the relevant offices. Go back, talk to your associate deans. Go talk to the associate deans first before you talk to the deans. Sorry, Stefan. Yeah, and then come and talk to us. Our door is always open. Now, you presented a viewpoint which unfortunately I did not even think about, right? We were trying to solve the problem of getting more diversity. And we thought if we give this fellowship with extra resources, a little bit extra stipend, maybe we would sway. And all we need is a few more numbers, right? And it would make for a better diverse student body. But this feedback is very important. And I think we will take this back and maybe discuss it with the provost.
Yes. What if we create a fellowship for like African women? I didn't see a lot of African women here.
I agree.
Like that would be a nice
I
fellowship.
completely agree with you. Yeah. So this idea should be floated. Okay. So maybe somebody taking notes can make an action item for us that this can be discussed with the provost and say, hey, why not have a fellowship for African women? I mean, certainly. I mean, again, that's an underrepresented population in the student body. So if we strive to, the goal is to get more diversity, right? And it's not just to give more privilege to what you perceive are already privileged. So this is a good feedback. Thank you. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh my God, the sustainability students always thrill me. And I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Moving over, I can just add that we do have, however, special fellowships, very attractive ones for, well, not for KAUST, for Saudi PhD students, that way we try to find the very best ones and then would sponsor their postdoc in top-level institute, hoping that after the postdoc, they would come back as faculty. So we see that we have more of a problem getting this, these 1% to 2% of Americans up to 3%, but also we see that we need to provide the PhD candidates for the PhD diploma students from Saudi with the possibility to moving on from there and just keeping at the same pace and come back to KAUST ideally at a later stage.
Hi. Thank you guys for this very important discussion. I like to Okay. I wanted to go back to the earlier point about handling cases of bullying and sexual harassment. You were talking about how it's important that people do talk about it or escalate it when something like that does happen. And Ravi, you said that when the case did happen, you escalated it directly to the president. But I was wondering if there is a set protocol or set way of handling this, because I've actually heard about different cases where professors handled the cases completely differently based on, I guess, what they thought was best.
Yeah, I think so depends, of course, what has happened. If it's, of course, if it's the professor harassing someone, then it would not be the best person to go to. But even if it's someone in the group of the professor who is harassing someone else, you still may consider to get an outside opinion, because sometimes the professor thinks, well, if I can deal with it myself and it's going to be okay. And so we don't make any noise about that, especially if I'm going up for promotion next year. I don't want to hear anything. So maybe it's better to just go and talk to other persons first. You can, especially if you're not quite certain if that has crossed a line or not, if that behavior has crossed a line or not. You can, for example, in our case, in our division, you could go to the GPCs, the graduate program coordinators, which are, in our case, very, very active in these cases. But certainly then program chair or associate dean would be persons you can talk to. You can also talk to the team of Todd Petruska for students. I think that's appropriate way. So there's various ways in which you can investigate or sort of address your issues first outside the group, just to make sure that they don't get sort of calm down and say, hey, it's going to be fine. We just talk to each other and shake hands, and that's good. Maybe it needs more than that. So I would suggest going to GPCs, associate dean, program chair maybe, or Todd's team, or any person of your confidence, of course.
A BIT committee here in KAUST, which is intervention group, which is led by Todd. And I think any case, you should approach this. This is a completely confidential committee. And if anything happens, I think you're encouraged to approach Todd or someone in this team.
Is this the new one? I think I got an email about it recently.
The new one?
Is it new?
No.
Yeah. No?
It's not only for that specifically, it's for any kind of issues. It's a general committee for different issues with the students, related to students. Specific, this case is specific for students, like this harassment, but also any kind of difficulty that the student might be facing, which is beyond the academic issue. It's not only about the grades, it's about feeling depression or feeling of being facing some specific challenge.
I think there should be more awareness about this, because I know a lot of students that just don't know where to go.
Yeah. I will give this message to Todd. I think we have, and I think it's in the, not I think, I'm sure I see it in the website, but the awareness must be higher than that.
I don't want to speak for HR because they're not here today, but I do believe HR have a lot of processes and procedures as well for students, postdocs.
No.
And so you can also...
They don't. So just to jump in the discussion.
You have the policy office who deal with...
Not with students. So
only postdocs?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is one of the really important points, is that unfortunately, depending on which group of people you are belonging, the policy or the structure is completely different. So what you are just saying as a comment is really interesting. One of the girls from PSC came to me talking about sexual harassment from another student. And she talked to me, she was not my student. She talked to me because I was a woman. And she didn't know how to deal with that. She didn't know how to manage that. So I escalated that to the director of the center, who contacted HR. And then we lost almost a week or 2 weeks saying, okay, it's not HR, we don't do that. Okay, so let's try to find the other path. So my point is that it's actually not straightforward to have an answer when you are in this difficult situation. And I think we as a as a university, we should work on making things easier for them.
So can I add to what's been already said, and I will reiterate what Stefan said. For students, your you have a number of resources. You can go to your PI, but if you're not comfortable, there is the counselors in graduate affairs. So this is STARD and team. There is the associate dean, and then there's the dean. And so Diana, I'm sorry, this student did not you did not come to our office because we would have solved the problem much quicker, hopefully, than HR
I'm
did.
sorry.
Because the previous case I was telling you about, which we sorted out in 24 hours, was actually a student's case.
Okay.
And if the first thing when students come to our office, the first thing we tell them is, you can be free to say whatever you want, because you are, whatever you say is like this attorney-client privilege, right? So we will never divulge this information without your permission. Complete confidentiality is maintained, and then feel free to talk about it. And if you're not ready to talk to associate dean or the dean, both of whom are, of the undesirable gender, we also have a team of graduate program student advisors, or called graduate program coordinators. 3 of the 4 are women. Feel free to talk to them first. But the assurance we give to the person is that whatever you're facing, we will solve the problem ASAP, right? Something like that comes to our office, we just say the problem will be solved, and it takes topmost priority. Everything else is dropped, and we solve this problem, because this is something that we are not going to tolerate at all in the university. And if HR doesn't have proper policies, graduate affairs is the main organization dealing with all student matters, including harassment. So you can go through the dean, associate dean, GPCs, and ultimately we may get graduate affairs involved in it. So these are the resources that you have for students.
Thank you.
Question?
Thank you. It's not really a question. It's also one thing that I think it's important to say, that it's not only important to create a straightforward process for people that wants to raise this type of problem, but also to like talking about it and create awareness. It's important to create a safe environment where to talk, because most of the time people are also afraid that if they go somewhere or they go to the wrong person to talk about sexual harassment or other type of problem, then this can backfire. So it can be something that could create a disadvantage in the future. So awareness is extremely important, and let people know that these are things that can happen, and it's okay to talk about it, and there is not gonna be anything bad happening to people that speak up against that, because sometimes people are mostly worried about that.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said. There needs to be a safe space. By the way, the counselors are in graduate affairs are professionals, so they have to maintain things confidential, and this is part of their job. And they're not supposed to be judgmental and so on and so forth. So if someone is afraid to talk to anybody else, then the counselors is a good place to start. And then they can involve the appropriate people. They are aware of the dean's office and the graduate affairs office members and so on. There's another thing I would also like to encourage people to think about. KAUST has what's called a whistleblower policy. You don't necessarily have to be a direct victim, but if you see somebody else who's being victimized, you can be a whistleblower. You can go and complain on their behalf. And the whistleblower policy ensures complete anonymity. There are administrative walls in place so that the information doesn't spill over from one area to the other. So if a whistleblower blows the whistle on something, When it's handed over to people investigating it, the investigating people don't know who made the complaint. So there is anonymity preserved and secrecy preserved. And I have seen this happen several times. So be aware that there is this other resource also.
Thank you.
And an official policy, a whistleblower policy, which protects you, and you can complain on somebody else's behalf. And we have seen this happen too.
There are, of course, also those unfortunate cases where the person who is bullying or harassing the student is either the PI or the like a senior part of the researcher of the team, and the person then who's being harassed thinks, if I speak up and don't tolerate that behavior, maybe I will not be able to finish my PhD, I will not get on the next paper, I will not get the good project. And if it's against the senior member of the lab, then maybe the PI will prefer keeping the person in place rather than having any serious sanctions against the person, removing him or her, typically probably him. So this is an unfortunate situation, and we try to deal with it as much as possible. But at some stage, of course, a student needs to see that the personal well-being is more important than a particular project or even a particular group. So what we would do in our division, if that happens, is to remove the student from this group if much as possible, and try to figure out, can we have some co-supervision or some different supervisor for the student assigned, just to move the student away from the situation. And if needed, then we will grant extensions for the PhD. We provide financial support to the new supervisor to make this happen. There will probably be some, unfortunately, there will be maybe some problems created for the students because maybe the student liked the project very well. But we think it's still better than having a student suffer from a more or less open bullying or other types of harassment, because that's something which affects the personality for the rest of the life, possibly. So rather spend one more year on a different PhD, maybe get one paper less, but at least the person comes out fully preserved and can go on with their lives.
Thank you. So we have two questions from the online person, and then you, and then we move to the next part of the discussion.
So it's actually just one now because one has been answered in the text. So one is for Nadia. So hi Nadia, again, congrats on your new role, and I know you'll be amazing in it. And by the way, this is from Bacta. As you embrace your new role here at KAUST, how will you bring your woman's perspective in the job, and what a woman can do differently than a man at this level?
That's quite controversial, isn't it? So what will I do for the women in the job now in my new role? Well, actually, I was quite surprised when I got into the Department of Global Branding and Communications to see the level that the women were at compared to the men. And I've already notified HR about this and asked if we could have some women empowerment workshops. If the women would like to advance their careers and get at a higher level, I would really like to support that. I don't know how it got to that position, that place, but you know, when I walked in, it was quite a shock. What was the second part of the question? That's the controversial part. I do really think that gender equality is important because the perspective of a female is so different from a man. And it's a good thing that we're so different because we both bring two different perspectives to any kind of issue or, you know, starting off a new initiative, you know, producing kind of a new project. Women will just tackle it differently to men, and both ways are right. Both ways are correct. It's just a different way. It's the way that we're made, you know, and then let's take gender out of it completely and let's bring in the culture side of it as well, which is really important because I mean I feel like I've just been schooled. I really think that I've thought that we were so inclusive at KAUST, but now listening to all of this, there's different communities at KAUST. There's students, there's postdocs, there's staff, there's faculty, there's spousals, and it doesn't seem like there's equity there. That's for sure. And you know, I'm really happy that a man asked that question. So I think, you know what, it is fantastic that women can bring a different perspective to men. I'm not going to say what kind of perspective that might be, but I think that it goes beyond gender. I think it's also cultural, and I think it's your personality and your characteristics as well, and how hard you're willing to work at a project. But there is a reason why there should be a balance between men and females, you know, in any kind of projects or in any department, because you will get that beautiful balance then in the projects that you do.
Thank you. So last question from the audience.
Actually, I just wanted to share my experience to coming to KAUST. First, I wanted to come when I was studying my master's in the US. And I had heard about this visiting student and these other experiences that we could have while being a master's student. So I decided to email one professor. And when I emailed him, he told me that he asked me if I was a US citizen, because they were just looking for US citizens, Europeans, or Canadians at the moment. And I said, no, I'm not. So then he said, okay, you cannot. I'm from Panama. So I was just like kind of disappointed, because I was just like, okay, just because of my nationality, I cannot enter for this kind of cannot even enter the competition. So I had another friend, another coworker, who told me like, why don't you knock at more doors, just email more professors and see what happens. So I decided to email different professors, and then I got my an internship for 3 months. But I don't know how many other people will be that resilient or that tenacious to continue to knock at doors when someone tells you, no, you can't because of your nationality. And at the end, I ended up joining as a PhD student here, and I'm the first Panamanian PhD student. And it's another nationality added to the whole KAUST, which this professor didn't know. And I think that maybe the case is to kind of make also aware of professors or faculty about the possibilities that can be reached here in KAUST.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes, so we have different scholarship, different internships for different nationalities, and it's sort of the same idea that we're trying to some focus on particular underrepresented demographics, whereas others are just for other purposes. And so probably you're applying for the VSRP, and then which would only go for, at least I think now it's more open, but at the time it was only for specific nationalities where we thought we have not enough, which we should get more from. But we also have the others, which are called VS, visiting students, which are more flexible, and that could have been applied to you at the time already. So yes, maybe good time is good for us to mention to our colleagues the different possibilities they have and make sure that they are all aware of it, so that you don't get this sort of, because in the end you're here, but you felt discriminated against because of your nationality, which is something you don't want to create. So it's we could have brought it in with a different studentship, but it was just unfortunate that the professor wasn't aware of that.
Yes, precisely what Stefan said. VSRP was designed for specific demographics. Its scope has been expanded. The demographics have been expanded. Your peer, the person you first approach, he may not have been aware of this visiting student program, which is also applicable to any student coming from anywhere. So I'm not sure why that happened. So the next time your professor says, or scolds you for not doing something or for not understanding something, you say, when was the last time you understood something when it was explained by the deans and others? Yes, you know, it's very frequent that we have to repeat these policies to the professors themselves, so they they internalize it, because they too make mistakes. Okay, so I think it was quite a mistake that he turned you away, saying that you're not a US citizen or Canadian or whatever. The visiting students is open to everybody. So yeah, it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, thank you. So let's move to the second part of the discussion, which is about what can we do. So we have talked about the number of female students, female faculty. We didn't talk too much about the number of female in the senior leadership because, okay, it's also a difficult discussion. You want to say something on that? Yeah. Yes, but okay, maybe I'm not sure it's a place to discuss about that because okay. So let's talk about next topic about what could we do to increase the chances or to increase the well-being of a female student and faculty and staff at KAUST. What do you think about it?
Again, the chances of increasing the well-being.
The well-being and the chances of being successful.
Being successful. You mean being more successful than men? Yes. Okay. You know, Diana, you were part of the promotion cohort last year, right? So we had 4 out of 6 faculty candidates in faculty members in PSC division who were promoted, and 3 out of the 4 promoted were women, and all 3 were early promotions. Okay, yes. All 4 were early promotion, but the 3 females were actually early promotions. So I think you should not aspire to be as good as men. You can certainly do way better. And as our female colleagues in the faculty in the division demonstrated, they were doing much better. What can be done to improve chances, right? So there's a lot that can be done. I think we have to pay special attention to faculty mentorship, especially female faculty mentorship. By the way, someone also told me that it's impolite to use the word female. One should use women. Maybe I should use women faculty.
I'm French, so for me it's extremely impolite because female is what we use for animals, not for human beings.
Okay, there you go.
But
okay.
It's fine if it's a language tics. I'm okay now. I'm used to that.
Someone politely pointed it out to us once that female is not a preferred term. It should be women.
It's okay. It's just a vocabulary.
Women faculty. What we can do for women faculty is better mentorship. You know, there's Stefan alluded to this earlier. There's something called the Ibn Rushd postdoc. It's not postdoctoral anymore. It's called a fellowship program. It's really a program where we identify promising Saudi faculty candidates who are not quite ready to join KAUST. So we sponsor them to go away somewhere for 2 or 3 years as a postdoc. And then they come back here and, you know, hopefully we'll convert many of them to be faculty here. Something like in the spirit of Ibn Rushd, there could be a female fellowship program where we identify promising young female students who are graduating students or in their early postdoc years, and then say, okay, KAUST will sponsor you. You can go ahead for 2 or 3 years with the specific aim that when you come back, a big percentage of these women candidates can be faculty at KAUST. So a concerted effort like that will yield better numbers. I think we need better mentorship. We need a fellowship program like this. We need also leadership and leadership coaching programs. So you may or may not be aware, but you know, KAUST has a number of vice presidents. We have 4 deans. We have a number of directors. KAUST does spend the resources to train these people in leadership qualities. We engage with external consulting firms. We have one-on-one mentoring sessions with those consulting firms. They tell you how a leader is supposed, what are the qualities of a leader and so on. Certainly we can identify female leaders in the making and again give them the same kind of coaching so that you kind of poising them to be the leaders, the next generation of leaders in KAUST. And Naadiya is quite right. 2 out of 13 senior leaders are only 2 out of 13. So that's a small number. And the number 2 out of 15, yeah, 13 male, right? Unlucky number there, right? So we got to change that. Certainly, so you know, putting some kind of leadership training, putting some kind of a fellowship program, a better mentorship. I think these are certainly some concrete steps the university can take. to better the chances. I have no doubt in my mind that when it comes to pure scientific metrics, science and technology metrics, our female faculty are you know, they're going ahead with guns blazing, okay? They're doing better than their male counterparts, frankly. But does this translate to a directorship of a center or becoming the dean or a vice president? This is yet to be seen.
Thank you.
So you were asking two male professors, what should we do to increase the amount of women at all levels, especially student, postdoc? So I think for us, what we need to do is to listen, because we wouldn't even know what's needed. We wouldn't even know what's missing. So I think we need to listen and see what would make other people decide to come to KAUST. Again, as you've said, once the women, the female women colleagues we have in KAUST are outstanding. There's no doubt that they will perform extremely well. They're fantastic. Still, there may be some difficulties they may face, and we can again listen to them and see what it is. For example, because they're outstanding, because we don't have 50-50 male female, they may just get asked more often than a male assistant, associate professor, or even full professor, to go to all these meetings, and which would then make them put a lot of their own time and effort in going to these meetings, which at the end they will not have to do publications or grant writings or so on. So we can see what that is. But I think, yeah, in particular, we need to listen to what could make the difference for those who are here, and what will make a difference for those who are not here but would consider coming.
Okay.
So I think it's just a change in mindset. I am very lucky. I have only been molded by men my entire life, right? All my managers, my bosses have been male, but they've been very supportive to me. Vice President for Research and my director as well have always supported what I would like to do for females, empowering females or women. And you know, I'm lucky to have them, but they are very few. The provost recently put Professor Susanna Nunes as the vice provost, which was so welcomed. It was fantastic that he had that mindset to see that Susanna should be at that level, because she most certainly should be at that level. I recently had a follow-up with a center director and associate director following their center evaluation. One of the recommendations was that they needed extra expertise in the center. And you know, they put forward 2 male names in an already all-male center, and I just went, why? Where is the female names? Well, there are females working in this, you know, research area. We need to put them forward for these positions. And he laughed, and I totally put him on the spot, and he was so embarrassed because he didn't think of putting a female forward for the position, and he totally admitted it. I mean, he was very humble about it. But so, yeah, it's just a change in the mindset and teaching maybe perhaps the males a little bit, you know, just to think, could a woman do this job?
That's a very important point, Nadia, which is, you know, always, so this is what I have learned over the last few years is when somebody says nominate some names for task ABC, the first thing I do is I make a list of people, and then I said, okay, I also asked myself the question, are there female faculty who could do this? And if so, then I'm very happy to nominate them. By the way, which center was this, Nadia? I'm kidding. You don't have to tell us. Yeah, so it's also a change in the mindset. You have to constantly ask yourself, how do we involve women more, and not just, you know, normally instinctively directly go to the male names.
Just to support what you're saying, I'm a woman. I have the same behavior also sometimes, and I need to force myself. Okay, I forgot the women. Okay, I should do that now. It's difficult to change a state, and when we are in a male-dominated environment, we try to promote men. It's unfortunate, but it's not just I have the same bias. This is my point.
Yeah. So again, I think I'm trying to make sure that if I nominate women for like a committee or something, that it's an important one, not just one where they lose the time and get another one to fill up. But some are more important than others, and that's where they certainly be represented.
Okay, thank you very much. In terms of this is something that we just discussed briefly, but in terms of giving even chances, there is the maternity problem. So women, especially, there are a lot of faculty or junior staff who are arriving, who are at the age where they will have babies, they will raise a family. The family issue is not only for women, it's really a joint project. My understanding, I tried to have the number yesterday, is my understanding is that currently for women working at KAUST, the maternity leave is 10 weeks, okay? And for men, it's 3 days. Okay. Can you comment on that?
So I think it's 10 weeks for maternity leave, and then the earliest the childcare, women can put the children in childcare is after 12 weeks or something. So it's after 3 months. So there's also a little gap there. So yes, now we need to change that idea that men can continue working after 3 days, and then women should stay at home with the kid. So I mean, it's been open in other countries for a long time. Like I know someone who went on paternity leave in Sweden. That was in 2005 or so. That was a long time ago. But it's certainly not in all countries. So we need to be proactive and make sure that everybody knows that in KAUST we can do that. And maybe that would make a difference for the next promising faculty to come to KAUST, to choose KAUST over, I don't know, Harvard or something.
Thank you.
So, you know, if you look at it from an accounting perspective, right, people will think, okay, 10 weeks or whatever the number is, 3 months of leave, a woman will take maternity leave and be absent, and it's loss of productivity and so on. I think this is a very narrow outlook. And I think, moreover, if people start thinking, if you make it positive for women to be less stressed out during that period, give them the time they need, you know, to deliver the baby and recover from that, it's really an investment we are making in the women. And this investment will pay. If we make this initial investment, it'll pay off. You will have people more motivated to work. They will feel better good for the organization and say, hey, the organization gave me this, let me return more back to the organization. I think if you go with that mindset where it's really an investment, we are giving you the 3 months of 6 months off. It's an investment we are making in you, and correspondingly, we expect that you will return back on that investment. So I think this kind of a narrow-minded view that 3 months will be loss of productivity is just, it's crazy. I mean, this is last century, for heaven's sake. And yes, paternity leave 3 days is certainly not enough. Shocking.
But maybe it's still good that there's a choice between paternity and maternity leave. And unfortunately, often sometimes there may also be a financial decision behind who's going on maternity, paternity leave. If the husband gains more than the woman, then maybe that he will continue working, and the woman, even though she'd be fine and happy and all recovered, will stay longer at home. Maybe you should also consider that, for example, that if a woman, that we can get sort of financial compensation for if the husband stays at home, that the woman who continues working gets a top up so that the overall income remains the same.
I don't exactly get your point because, sorry. Yeah.
Say if of course, if maternity, paternity leave is for a short time, but if now they think, okay, our kid has problems sleeping and whatever, has some issues, and we would not put it to daycare, but one of us has to stay at home, and we need to take unpaid leave. So then who would stay at home? Those who gets the lower salary, and often, unfortunately, it's maybe the woman.
Okay. And just to finish about this maternity, paternity leave, there are more and more countries, especially in Europe, where they start to have mandatory paternity leave with the same length than women. And then they can organize as they want. They don't need to take them at the same time. It started on the north of Europe. Now it's spreading. I think in Italy, they reached this point. In France, they are going to this direction. I do see that is something that we will have a chance to see at KAUST in the coming years.
Well, I hope so, but I'm not making these decisions, but I hope so. Yeah, but I can certainly bring it up. Yeah.
I mean, KAUST needs to be the beacon of progressiveness here, right? So we should certainly make this happen in KAUST. I mean, imagine the rest of the world looking towards KAUST in Saudi Arabia and saying, hey, they have very progressive maternity and paternity leave policies. that in itself will go a long way in global branding. And that's your. Do you want to say more?
Well, yeah, I think we are very progressive. You're right. We were talking to two students that came from KAU last night, and we were talking to them about the COVID situation and how KAUST, we were all like the kids went back to school before Saudi Arabia. So you would hope that that KAUST would be able to do this, but 3 days is shocking. I am so sorry for all the dads in KAUST. That is shocking.
Okay, thank you. So let's open the floor for the audience to ask a question if you have to the three panelists.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Because of the whole women versus female debate, I just kind of wanted to clarify for everybody listening. Also, it's just that the general rule, at least in English, is that like female is an adjective, so usually you tag it onto something. So that's why it's used for animals, like female deer, female human, But a female human, the proper term is woman. So if you are saying my female boss or female professor or male professor, that's fine. But if you're talking about like a specific like, female human or male human, you're saying that. And that's it.
Thanks for the clarification. This is extremely useful. I will use that. Thanks.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yes, many words are sort of by nature masculine or conceived as masculine. Scientist, politician, all these things. So that's also something you can work on. If you have a class of school children, say, draw a scientist. Let's see how many women will be drawn. It's something that can be, yeah, and you see, KAUST is the way to go. Good, it's good, fantastic. Yes, so of course, if you have here a discussion between opportunities between male and female, between scientists and women scientists, or between man scientists and women scientists. So yeah, in German they try to revise the language. It makes it quite complicated already. German words along like that anyway. But so you have to put an innen at the end of something, politica innen something. So yeah, they try to create awareness with it, and some agree more than others on that. But yeah, at least there's some bias in the language already, which we need to be aware of.
I think one should resist the temptation also of going too much into the woke category, right? I mean, woke is good, but too much woke is probably not so good. And I mean, if you take the example of actor and actress, right? We used to say a long time ago, actor and actress. That's gone. Now you just say actor, whether it's male or female. So when we say scientists, you don't need to add anything to just make it male or female. Just get rid of it.
I just wanted to say that it's great that we're having this conversation, and Dean Ravi, you mentioned about KAUST being a beacon. As Saudi Arabia moves into pushing more and more women into the workplace, and I've seen it in other countries where, yes, it's great, women can go to work. Okay, great, you can go to work and you can do everything else too. So I hope we figure out how to help women, support women in the workplace, and that we are a beacon for the country. I'm not sure if there's a question. I've just seen it happen too many times where I saw it a lot in Mexico, although men are very supportive, I found, in Mexico with the children. It was often that women were sort of left to do everything, and it just there was no support. So the grandparents come in.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if KAUST had any proactive policies to recruit women faculty. Like, are they trying to do any like active outreach to women around the world? Because I'm a student here, and there's a lot of women who, prospective students who email me and ask me what it's like to be a woman at KAUST. So I'm wondering if like KAUST is proactively trying to tell women what it's like here, or if there's like what the benefits of being here are, or if they're just kind of having a general call for faculty and then hoping women apply.
I think the call for faculty are sort of gender neutral. Maybe there's a statement about encourage women to apply. Again, I think the best way to convince someone is to bring the person here and then see really how it is. That speaks more than words.
So, yeah, you know, in the United States, if you see job postings for faculty, right, there's always a sentence towards the end which said women and minorities are encouraged to apply. We could do something like that. To the best of my knowledge, there's only been one instance, I think it was University of Melbourne, Department of Mathematics, which said, we have an opening in whatever, algebraic topology or whatever it was, and they said, we will only hire a female candidate. That's the only case I am aware of where it was explicitly mentioned that they would not even consider male applicants. I think a lot of forcing it that way, it opens up issues of legal challenges. Okay, so the men will challenge this legally, saying, how can you just restrict this opening to just females or to women? And so I think we can do better in terms of advertising the place, making sure that women are more comfortable applying. But right now in KAUST, we just open it up as, you know, just a general faculty position. We could certainly add the phrase, women are encouraged to apply, but there's nothing like that right now, as far as I know.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking.
I think, being a vice provost and interacting with the provost all the time, I'm sure that we have a good candidate, someone that is really is on. It will take this candidate. I think we're really willing to support women as a candidate, as someone, as a faculty here. And I think in terms of support, yeah, I don't care much about this phrase. I think in German, I lived in Germany so long. I think you put this phrase all the time, women encouraged to apply, but at the end, it doesn't mean much in the specific case. But I assure that if you have a good candidate in any program, I think we will push for this person to be hired. I think it's very well. The other problem is really how to convince women to come here, because you see, okay, the question that you get all the time, I get too. So how is life for women in KAUST in Saudi Arabia? So I think we have to have a more work on and advertising, global branding, and so and there's a long way to convince. I think there's stereotypes, that people that don't want to hear the positive side. I think many times if you go to a conference, and you tell a positive example, you look, okay, no, but it's not really that way. No, that's the other side. So I think we have to work on that. It's not easy. It's a long way to go. And I think if we have more women, if we have more faculty, good faculty, I think the best is to choose excellence, and we have a lot of women who has this excellence. It's really to pay attention on that. And I think I have a question in general for you also. How can we improve, as you say, the well-being here, but how can we improve also the subtle part of it? I think one is harassment. It's clear, it's criminal. And I think if any of you will come with this, with an issue like that, it will, as Ravi said, I'm sure that we'll take care of that. But how to deal with the other side, which is not so visible? It's like just said, clever girl. That's one part of the story. Or someone who maybe try to work in a way that is not accepting. It's not how can we mentor men? So we have an excellent change in the last year. So to offer mentorship program, we are working on that. We will have more and more mentorship for faculty, mentorship for postdocs. I know HR is working a lot on that, and the faculty affair working on mentorship for faculty. How to convince the faculty that need mentorship to be mentored. That's the main difficulty that we have.
Are you expecting a response to that? No, I agree completely. So, you know, maybe we should even change the word mentor to person or whatever. But yeah, certainly mentorship, how to be a mentor, mentoring mentors is important. Coaching them how to be better mentors. This the stark cases where there is harassment going on are obvious. We know how to deal with them. The subtle cases where someone is uncomfortable but doesn't quite know how to deal with it. You know, there could be innuendo in the speech on the part of the male, and how do we get rid of that, and so that women, students, faculty, staff feel more comfortable around it. This really requires training, you know. So this is what I was saying, you know, we need to, when we employ somebody here, put them through the training and then renew it every year. You know, it's important to do that just to keep pace with the times. I don't know. Any more?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's much about the awareness of what is acceptable and what isn't. And of course, some of us, maybe it's things, as long as I don't shout at someone using violent terms, it's okay. It isn't. I mean, there are many, as you said, there are many levels ahead of that, which should be acted on. And so, yeah, I think we need to raise awareness on both sides, on the persons who may be bullied without even understanding that the behavior which makes them uncomfortable is bullying. So they need to be understanding that this is too much already, and they can go and see someone and maybe start with the GPC, if that's a person of confidence or anybody else, thoughts team. And of course, those also who are having this behavior, we need to know that this is not acceptable and that is already too far. We need to stop earlier than that. We shouldn't even go there. That's the point of that issue. Just to comment on the previous topic of faculty recruitment, like the last position I was involved personally, we did not even have a female applicant. So it was cryo-electron microscopy for single particle analysis of proteins. Okay, it's biophysics, but we didn't even get a single female applicant. And even though we advertised it worldwide and on various channels. So we need to work on that.
Okay. So just to let you know that this is really interesting and really important. So last year we did it, and I think this year we will did it again. We will do it again. We'll write a white letter to the president with some recommendation or thought or discussion that we have. And I think what came up from this discussion is the training. I think it's something really important. We talk about also paternity leave, and I think also something that I would like to raise is to find to create a place for confidence for women that are suffering of sexual harassment, that they can reach even whatever their situation are. Because we didn't talk about the spouse job, but I think this population at KAUST is mainly a women population, and they are the less protected or the less well considered, or for them it's more difficult, I think, if they are facing an issue, to solve this issue. So I think this is also would like to have something that is for all women, whatever the situation they are at KAUST. Do you think we should add anything else in this white letter to the president? Do you have any? Yes, the African Women Fellowship. Yeah, it's absolutely a valid point. Definitely. Yeah.
Like a bit bigger effort to advertise position for female PIs here in KAUST, because yeah, it's true. Sometimes it's true. It's advertised all over the world, but maybe sometimes it could be helpful to target directly some female PIs and tell them, look, there is this position, maybe it could fit for you, and so on. So
that's a very good point. In fact, before coming here, I was making some notes, and I thought, if you remember recently, there was this advertorial, right, where a number of KAUST faculty were highlighted in some publications. An advertorial for female faculty would be certainly a good thing.
yes, it's certainly something we could raise again as awareness, because often if you have open searches, we contact our peers and colleagues to see if they're interested, but maybe you can have more emphasis on that. Just to say, for the position that we had opened, there was, of course, there's several extremely prominent female scientists who work in this position, but I don't think they would come to KAUST just because they're so well established where they are and wouldn't consider moving.
Yeah, so one has to run this through legal, I guess. We have some good ideas, but not all of them might be totally legal.
Maybe it might just give some comfort that the senior leadership are very well aware of the gender balance or unbalance, perhaps, and that a lot of these initiatives, like the Ibn Rushd and the global fellowships coming out of the Provost office and the VPR's office, are really there to nurture an individual that potentially could become a faculty. And there is much emphasis on bringing females in, but we just don't state it, we just don't write it, right? We of course encourage absolutely everybody to come in, but they're very aware. So I think it's, and also Naja's office as well has quite a lot of emphasis, so strategic national advancement on nurturing, I don't want to say female talent, women, and keeping them at KAUST. So perhaps we're not there yet with bringing in the women faculty, but we're there with the initiatives that will lead us to have a higher cohort of women faculty in the future.
And of course, the advertisement has to be done a little more subtle, or but you can state that we have a policy of paternity leave or something like this, or whatever. It's again, we need to listen to what typically stops female top scientists to apply to come to KAUST and see what their issues are, and then address them.
Hi. Why the spouses for accompanying the masters or PhD don't work? Example, I stopped my career and I cannot work in here. And I can't stop in my home. I only watching you, and this place is a big motivation for producing but here I don't produce because I cannot work. Why?
This is a legal issue. So this is not a KAUST problem. It's legally in Saudi Arabia. If you arrive on a student visa, your spouse cannot work. So it's something that in the past, the spouse of student could have a job at KAUST, and at one point it was not legal anymore, so we had to stop that. So it's not a choice from KAUST. It's the situation in Saudi Arabia.
I think this issue is not only in Saudi Arabia, because when I was in Canada studying, also my husband couldn't get a work permit. He has to stay at home until I finish my study, or he can get a student permit, but not a work permit. So it's like a global thing, like usually for students.
It depends on where you are in the world. It's yeah, you have other countries that have the same policy.
But absolutely, when I was in the US, I had to get a green card before my wife could start working. That's difficult.
Any other last question? Okay, so thank you so much for participating to this panel discussion. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Dean Ravi. Thank you, Stefan. It was a great pleasure to have you here, and thank you for your really honest and clear answer to our question. And I hope we'll make some progress. And next year we'll have another discussion about that. Thanks. So now we have the lunch. The lunch is not at the same location than yesterday. It's in building 5, so level 5, building 5. And we start again at 1:30. Thank you.